Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 101, a scion of many worlds. Setting down back on Lacran brings a sigh of relief to Emmanuel. Oh, screw you, you can't be that eager to get back to work. Horace chides him, and then dodges the flick of the claws. We have company already. It's Mr. Jameson, the clone Jameson, Lady Clarity says. That's likely to be an outright demographic at this point, Horace remarks. Yeah, even if only a fraction of all governments pulled off what the Gavali Empire did, there's still a lot of Jamesons bouncing around. And the temptation to test a new species that has particular resistances would be too great for far too many people. Morgana notes. You would know, Mother. Yes, I would, my son. It brought you back. I'm not ashamed of what I did, Morgana says. And touchdown in 3, 2, 1. We are back on Lacran, Lady Clarity says as she finishes the landing sequences. Airlock cycling and offloading, ramp descending. We are home. Thank you for the safe and secure journey, Lady Clarity, Emmanuel says, and he receives a nod from the dutiful woman. Now let's see what's got Harold in such a tizzy. They quickly get to the ramp and start moving down. Jesus, boy, what happened to you? Did you fall in a vat of Slim Fast? Yeah, I'm skin and bone man now. Forced liposuction and perfectly healthy food for everyone, Harold says as he pulls out a Nutri-Bar and takes a big crunchy bite. Horace flinches. You're off the edge of the map, matey. Here it be healthy. Oh, screw you, skinny. The hell happened? Short-baked clones keep aging at the speed of light. Unless Dr. Skitterway's techniques are used to basically replace everything with something that isn't going to be centuries old before its third birthday, Harold says before leaning to the side to better face Dr. Skitterway. By the way, Doctor, thank you. You're welcome, young man. Make good use of your life. I intend to. So what's so big and bad that you need to speak to us right away, but not so terrible that we need to be concerned when on break? Well, on one hand, the issue is well in hand, but it does relate to you guys and you deserve to know, Harold says before giving a slight bow. Congratulations, Horace Blue. Like my original you, have thousands of clones too, but none like me so far, Horace says before smirking and then jerking a thumb at Emmanuel. Considering I got him first, I think you're more the second-rate copy to what I got out of the whole cloning debacle. Huh? Fair. Anyways, that's the big news. You need to pick out baby names or maybe a package for all the Horace Blue Mark IIs out there. Mark III, this guy's Mark II. I have my own memories too, jackass, Emmanuel states. Silence, cheap copy. Real men are talking, Horace declares and dodges a smack to the back of his head. The 15-foot-tall man cackles as he shifts out of casual swinging distance. Right, also the inevitable is soon to push out. With the news of your next family member on approach, it means that pretty much everyone that thinks primals are big deal are going to be crowding the system in short order. We're getting out while the getting's good. Fair enough. To be honest, I'm shocked Thessalia and grandmother aren't already here to grade us, Emmanuel says. I've asked for a few minutes from them, of which I'm likely out of now, so expect them at any moment. Not much of a warning that. That you're getting any at all is a good thing, Harold says. He's right. Often the element of surprise can ambush you out of nowhere. Thessalia notes behind them, into the left. Isn't that by definition what surprise is? Grandmother asks, somehow unnoticed in front of them. All right, that's enough hacks bullshit for me right now. I need to finish up my filtering of recruits. You're recruiting? Temp security work on the inevitable. They've got issues adopting Axiom tech and techniques, and with me in the group I'm hiring, this is how we sidestep it. Anyone I know? Emmanuel asks. Banshee says she knows you. Oh, you're hiring her. Good, she seemed lost after the Slaver Empire was torn down. She's got a history, doesn't she? One of the survivors of the crash started messing with the other direction and became a body-snatching, soul-abusing, enslaving horror. Banshee rebelled a little too much and was trapped in a cursed half-life. Her body died, but her soul and consciousness was still present. I found her as a living corpse. I healed her and promised her revenge. But the shadow, the monster the survivor had become, she was too powerful to let Banshee close enough. She had to be killed fast. And she's smart enough not to blame you. Well, she and her exceptional FOSA hearing will be serving on the inevitable as an anti-axiom contingency. Halfway between intelligence and security, Harold says. Good for her, I'm sure she'll find something for herself if she's going to bounce from one end of the galaxy to the other. Are you all right, dear girl? The child not giving you any trouble? Grandmother asks the moment there's a slight lull in the conversation. She's beside Iserzen and giving each of the quintet a pat on the head, even as she places her last hand over Iserzen's stomach. Oh yes, I'm well experienced as a mother. We have some time left before our new child is to be laid. Then more time to prepare the nest and for their coming, Iserzen says. Oh, this is exciting. Love to be here when a new primal is born. So full of energy and life, so much so what every Nagasha should be. Will be one day, Grandmother says, rising up to Iserzen's height. You've made me proud again, dear child. Oh, she has to earn your pride? Horus asked for no other reason than the stirring the shit. None of that. I will not have you besmirching my dear little lady, Grandmother states. That was a dodge. You're getting impudent, little man. Little. Yes, little. I can pick up and walk off with most ships. Fairly weak, too. I think you need to practice more. Grandmother chides him. Horus puts a hurt hand on his chest and the back of his hand to his forehead as if swooning. He and Emmanuel then start laughing. You're doing fine, little human, Grandmother says as she pats Horus on the head. Again with the little. I'm huge. If you say so, young man. I am. She's not even being mean, and she has you by the balls, Harold says in awe. Harold! Emmanuel chides him before pointing at the girls. Hey kids, what did I just say? Harold asks. Balls, they shout. That's right, balls, Harold replies, pulling out a handful of bouncy balls out of his pocket. You all get some balls to play with. Isn't that nice? You were ready for this, Emmanuel says in awe as Thessalia laughs at the situation. I'm ready for anything. Even me? Thessalia asks, and Harold cracks his neck from side to side. If you're asking for round 2, the answer is yes. But first I want to get an axiom scrambler. Looking for a fairer fight? For you, yes. I need to get into better shape. And I can't do that if I just dip into axiom to solve all my problems. If you weren't already married to one of my children, I would be setting you up as we speak, Thessalia says as she withdraws a quintet of bands. These would make even me struggle to use axiom. Harold takes them all, wears one around each limb, and the last one is a headband. All right, lady, we're taking this outside. Humans. Oh, humans, Thessalia says fondly as she follows Harold off the landing pad and to the side. 5 seconds later, there is an entire soundboard of different explosions. Why are you sulking? 30 seconds without axiom against a primal of any kind, let alone the Lady of War, is the sort of thing people build entire reputations off of. Giria, a reputation for losing isn't one I'm fond of. Dear God, boy, you literally broke your fists on her jaw and earned her deeper respect, she tells him. I know. I just wanted to walk away with one of her teeth, Harold admits, and Giria starts laughing helplessly at that admission of sheer insane determination. She tries to talk on no less than 3 occasions before laughter overtakes her again. Then she wraps up by hugging him from behind and kissing him on the forehead. Oh, our daughters will make the stars bleed. Not if I drain them dry first, Harold says, and she laughs again. He examines his now abused and injured hands. Yes, axiom healing had meant that he's already recovered and no longer needs the medical tape, but it feels good. He's standing out so massively that there's no way anyone could mistake him for Herbert. He is himself. He is Harold Armory Jameson, a man crazy enough to go after a primal with nothing but his bare hands and no axiom. Something feels like it clicks. He sits a touch more comfortably. He is himself, truly himself. The door opens and he smirks. Uma rushes into the room, looks him over once, grabs him by the shirt and kisses him deeply. You, me. Kittens now before you try to eat the stars. What? You think I can't handle the spice? Kittens now. They will be strong, Uma says, dragging him out of the room with Giria in hot pursuit. I have appalling timing. Captain Rangi notes calmly as he turns off the feed from the spy security suite that had been installed over the ship. He doesn't want to hear what Harold sounds like in the midst of a threesome, rapidly becoming a five-way complete with flying midget. You think you have it bad? Banshee asks. I can hear them without the tech. It's harder not to for me. Yes, about that. Your entire species is skilled in audio and sound-based axiom effects and the like. We are, she says. Are you going to elaborate? Do you need me to? I order you to elaborate at just how potent your hearing is. In the mess hall, someone just dropped a small handful of coins. One of them has a slight stain on one side that is adjusting the way it bounces and reverberates. I can't tell you the exact denomination of coins because you're not using anything local or that tri-tight, girdle, kutha sort of deal that the outsiders use. And where were these coins dropped? Right in front of one of HTE little wall shops, third from the left. I think that one has a lot of chewing gum in it. Okay, that's vaguely terrifying. You're impossible to sneak up on. Not impossible, but it's really, really hard. I see. I assume the person you keep looking at behind me is one such person who could sneak up on you. You're good. Banshee compliments him even as he starts to turn to face the dark Aramenta, who had more or less simply phased into existence behind him. Thank you, Captain Ragni responds. Hello. This job pays well, takes me across the galaxy, and needs people who can tackle someone through walls without breaking them. That's me. I was a small part of the Might Moth's army when he first marched on Miru, and then later on the Slaver Empire. The man made things too easy, though. I didn't get to wet my blades all that much. I see. So you two are it for our local recruits? What about the Crusaders? They're transferring their things over now and should be. Agent Shigidi begins before cutting himself off and the door opens. A trinity of Apic women wearing the colors of Lady Thessalia, black with glowing lines, march in and salute. Sir, security squad reinforcements are here. We're moved in and ready. Ah, you would be Apic, am I correct? The natives of Serbo? We are. You are aware that our next destination is Serbo, correct? It was part of the appeal. My battle sisters and I are trying to grow stronger, so that one day we can return home and earn our crowns as battle princesses. But visiting home is always nice. I see, you do know we won't be staying longer than a few days, and you will have duties while we are in the system, correct? I know, but I've read through your policy. It's neither illegal nor immoral for me to say, receive a care package of my mother's cooking, or talk to my family while I'm on break. True enough. How capable are you as counter, spies, and security? Security-wise, we're all three of us able to get the first few flickers of green warfire manifested. We can burn through a ship's hull fast enough to save ourselves from asphyxiation. As for counter spies, we're all well regarded for our skills in axiom sensing. We've made use of and practiced against heat-based illusions and cloaking. But in general, we're more a county axiom strike force. Unless you humans want to use null in everything. As far as I'm concerned, null use is axiom use. Why are you so opposed to it? I'm going home after this. If I get reliant on axiom and its shortcuts, I get sloppy, Captain Rangi says. Are you sure you're not one of the undaunted? Because that's the kind of answer they give out. They don't have a patent on personality traits, miss. Still, so long as you three are willing to work with my ship and respect security clearances and rank, then we should get along swimmingly. Oh, don't worry, sir. We may not be prodigies like some of the girls that get their crowns in their first few decades of life, but we have experience and well-refined skill. We've earned our power the slow and careful way, which means we have the patience to see this job through to the end. Good. Welcome aboard the inevitable. Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 102. Elsewhere with Others. Captain Rangi raises an eyebrow as the dark Aramenta emerges from the floor in a pool of no longer inexplicable shadow. Is the dark pointed hood truly necessary? No, but I like it, and I don't have a uniform. She answers reasonably. Her eyes are glowing a dark purple from within the face-concealing hood. Fair enough. Is something of concern? I've noticed markings with these symbols all over the ship. I'm uncertain if there's some kind of sabotage of merely manufacturing marks, similar to the factory complexes that Lord Skitterway's putting up. She says, bringing up a communicator and quickly parsing through several pictures of internal components to the ship. These are just manufacturing marks. They use Arabic numerals for numbers. The letters at the beginning are shorthand for the source of the part and such. We're trying to get Dauntless-class ships into something that can be properly produced and not just a series of one-offs. I see, so don't be concerned. I'd be more concerned if you found a rash of parts without such markings on them, Captain Rangi notes. Anything else? What's the facial markings about? She asks him, and he smirks. I'm a Maori man. These are cultural tattoos to not go into too deep detail. They used to be for the more important people once, but now many people of Maori descent wear them to show pride in who we are. I see. Thank you for telling me. Do you have anything of the sort for your own? In Miru, we had many traditions and expectations based on one's element, something Lord Skitterway all but shattered when he took over. My own family, the Eve, we were not well regarded, not so well as families like the Dusk or Midnight, she says, sweeping back her hood and exposing the living mass of short-cropped shadows that is her hair. You can think of us as well-off merchants compared to minor nobles of similar wealth. Of course, is the hood something of your people? Something of yours, actually. I had a chance to watch some human entertainment, and one bit involved a group of champions, one having fetching gray skin like myself. The cloak and hood is based off of hers, although I'm less inclined to show off so much leg. Insects, you understand. Of course. Thankfully, there's not so many on the ship. That is a good point, she notes before smiling. Perhaps I'll try it. The garbs did look plenty flexible, and are likely quite cool in warmer climes. Your pardon, Captain. I have some sewing to do. By all means, Captain Rangi says before she phases through the floor and vanishes. Is no one going to comment that she looked like she stepped out of a cartoon? The man on navigation asks. Considering that she made a comparison herself, I think it needs not to be said, Mr. Wind. Captain Rangi notes, is there anything of note on the sensors? A few comets in the distance and a couple asteroids in extremely far system orbit, but they're far from our exit route and will not be any form of danger to us. No other ships on approach? We have several entering the Lacran system, but none of them are so much as scanning us in any way other than completely passively. Oh, never mind. One of them just did the equivalent of a second glance. Are they doing anything else? Not so far, sir. They're nearly at the edge of scanning range, though, so even if they stare, we'll be out of sight in a few moments. Mr. Wind says, and Captain Rangi nods. Out of scanning range in 3, 2, 1. We're gone and officially outside of Lacran space. Don't relax yet. Until we get to a major axiom lane, we're in no man's land. The place pirates and worse like to shelter in, Harold says as he opens the door to the bridge and walks in. Captain, I'm happy to report my team and I have completed a triple sweep of the inevitable, and she's come up clean. For now. Good man, how often do you intend to do these sweeps? Daily, but if things are starting to go wrong for any reason, we will initiate another rapid sweep to see if we previously missed something, Harold says. Good, and you will be reporting to me after the end of each sweep. You then Observer Wu in that order. The ship is yours, but the mission is his. Good, dismissed, Captain Rangi says, and Harold salutes before walking out of the bridge. That man moves way too quietly even when he's acting normal, Mr. Wind notes. That man unsettling you just means you're still relatively sane. He had a second round with the war goddess. He went in with nothing but fists and no magic. He still fought like he was going to win. She took blasts to the face that would rip the ship in half, and he thought he was going to do something with his fists? If he didn't believe it, he certainly acted like he did. Madness. Yeah, but madness on our side, Captain Ragni notes. Until he decides that since he's willing to throw hands at a god, he can throw hands with anything lesser than a god, Mr. Wind notes bitterly, which might not ever happen. Concern yourself with what is and what was. What will isn't here yet, and we won't know what it is until we get to it, Captain Rangi says. It's my job to try to predict the future and work with or against it. You don't need to worry about it. Like ordering me not to think about pink elephants, sir, Mr. Wind says. I know, I am very aware. Good to hear, Observer Wu states. Now, I have some questions for you about the private stream initiative. All right, I'm not technically in it, so any information I have isn't completely up to date. I just want a general overview and understanding of what that is. It's basically an Agent Smith sort of deal. A number of operatives, usually bodyguards or investigators, that all use the same name, uniform, and are treated as interchangeable. Things only stand out compared to similar organization assets on Earth due to the use of healing comas and recruiting heavily from shorter species to give the private streams the appearance of a child. Couple this with a coach personality that's very eager and earnest, and it affords them a great deal of social camouflage, as many people instinctively dismiss children so long as the child isn't in danger. I see. Anything else of note? Well beyond a standard equipment loadout, that's generally it. Private streams use their deliberately oversized uniforms to hide the fact that they're very well armed and armored, and under their hats is a visor and earpiece that has them in constant contact with at least one dedicated support personnel in intelligence, making them extremely dangerous, well-informed, and capable of organizing very efficiently to offer support to any undaunted asset. I see, and the other things I heard about them? Experiments, shrinking techniques for larger people to act as operatives, or ways to get streams into even more places or with larger numbers. But at the base, it's an agent that looks unassuming. Nothing too special there. Most successful spies or low-profile bodyguards have very normal appearances. And none of this is secret? Number, I'll be honest, unless my memories from Herbert are far more scrambled than anyone knows, the whole private stream thing was halfway between an accident and a side project that just took off well beyond any expectations. Where did it start? Investigations into Dark Cabal descendant criminal organizations. The Dark Cabal being a now shattered, if not destroyed, pirate band that used mass mind control to reave entire worlds. When we learned that there were descendants of those monsters on Centris, we decided to cut our teeth on them. I can't go into too many details. However, we tore apart more than one such organization, and a spying mission would have ended up public without an appropriate disguise. Herbert was rejuvenated already, so he dressed himself as an overeager and utterly inoffensive cadet. The first private stream? And it worked very well, alarmingly well. People are far too dismissive of the short, and if they look like a child, you may as well be socially invisible half the time, Harold says before shrugging. It's not illegal or immoral, but it is kinda off-putting. I see. Thank you for clearing that up, Observer Wu states. Anything else? Do you know the mechanics behind warfire? I do not. I understand that whatever the extra twist to the axiom fire is, it allows it to eat through materials it should not be able to actually damage. I've heard it can destroy anything. Not technically. When people are talking about warfire-eating starships, they're generally talking about the battle princesses who have some of the hottest and most aggressive warfire of the entire Apoc species. Only the Imperial family is known to produce hotter flames. How hot are we talking? White warfire will go through our hull like butter in a blast furnace. There's maybe 6 people in the galaxy that can reliably manifest it, though. Green warfire is the elite stuff, and it'll take a few seconds to burn through without heavy axiom protection. Blue is advanced warfire, and it would take a minute at most to get through. Red, which is the common warfire, will take a minute or two at least. But they will eventually get through if not stopped. That's what separates warfire from regular plasma or laser attacks. You can stop either of those dead with the right shield. There's no easy way to shield warfire. You got to cut off the source. I see. Are there more levels? Sort of. There are signs that someone is close to producing the next level of warfire. Licks of the next color and power or sparks of them. That sort of thing. Can this be learned? Of course, the Apoc are quite proud of their fire and make no secret of it. The problem is that using it without the immense thermal resistance of their kind means that you're going to cook yourself if you manifest it without protection. And who on this ship has that protection? Well, our Apoc guards for one, myself for another. That is all. You do, Observer Wu asks. Yes, sir, I have an undaunted brand. It's a powerful defensive marking that acts as protection against a wide variety of effects. You could throw me out the airlocks and I'll die of dehydration in the void long before decompression or a lack of oxygen touches me. And it's rated for warfire? To an extent. If I make direct contact with it, it's going to start burning me. If I can dodge it, then its sheer presence alone won't boil my innards. It will likely torch all my clothing and gear, though. This brand's protection must be manually extended if it's to keep anything but me safe. So you can't directly counter it. I can, but if I'm hit by it by surprise, then I've got problems. Thankfully, most Apuk are not like that. Why not? They were elevated to a galactic society when they were in their Middle Ages. Think the Western stories of knights, dragons, and princesses, and then consider that it's a dragon that looks like a princess and acts like a knight. That's the Apuk. So honorable, dutiful, and traditional. That's the stereotype. But that's just what it is, a stereotype. Like how humans are being regarded as perpetually horny porn stars that think they can solve all the galaxy's problems. And who thinks of us like that? Good observer, do remember that most of my memories come from a professional spy. Unless opinions on humans have changed drastically in the last couple months, then we're seen like an overly energetic and attractive people trying desperately to prove ourselves. The average opinion is that most women want a piece of us, and the big players in the galaxy generally find us inoffensive and occasionally useful. I don't like that. No one in charge likes the idea that they're ultimately just a piece in someone else's game. I'm a bit more ambivalent. I've been so thoroughly uprooted that things are just as they are, Harold says with a shrug. Anything else, sir? The dark forest, what's it like? I only have descriptions. A large axiom entity anchored in a gigantic forest? Or is it a forest that formed a communal axiom consciousness? Either way, it's a living, thinking, and remembering forest. An entire portion of a planet capable of reason and well known for taking in strays and teaching them to be very powerful and spiteful axiom adepts called sorcerers. Spiteful? Sorcerers are well known for their vengeance. Think about it like this. A normal person doesn't run into the dark, scary forest that you know for a fact is outright watching you. Only the desperate do. And those desperate people find themselves protected and taught how to be very, very powerful. What do you think happens next? A lot of death? Generally, yes. Thankfully, after they get their revenge, they usually calm right down and can be tamed, for lack of a better term. I understand that they're actually prized as a prime husband material by the Apuk. Having a sorcerer married into the family is a big feather in their cap. But they're murders. Usually, one of the better-known ones is an active serial killer whose signature style involves torturing his victims, but not letting them die until he's done with them. Really? Look up Bryn Char the Bone Chewer. Full-on movies have been made about his rampages. Why is this being tolerated in a presumably polite society? Because his chosen victim is a criminal organization. Imagine a serial killer, but they're exclusively hunting child traffickers. That's what's going on here. Are you being literal? The Orega girls, his chosen victims, have a large laundry list of crimes. Child trafficking is just part of it. The part that personally offends Bryn Char, as he was almost one of their victims and his twin brother was one of their victims. I see. You'll see clearer soon enough. From my understanding, the Bone Chewer is on good terms with the Undaunted on Serbo. I see. Thank you for informing me. Calm down, the Apuk like humanity. They really like us. Unless you do something absurd or insane, this will be a peaceful visit. I hope so, consultant. I truly hope so. OOCS into a wider galaxy, Part 103 elsewhere, with others. Captain, there's something here on the scanners. I don't know what I'm seeing exactly, and it only shows up on thermals. Only vaguely. Mr. Wynne states, and Captain Ragney frowns. Do we have some kind of visual? I can bring up the camera feed of the patch of space it's in, but we're not detecting anything. On screen, he orders. And while the view of alien stars is truly beautiful in its ethereal way, there is nothing there, just the general blinking, shining tapestry of starlight, albeit not in any pattern Ragney finds familiar. The cost of sailing the stars, they always look so very different between looks. The blinking pattern shifts ever so slightly and Ragney's eyes narrow. Focus in on the bottom left quarter. Something is there. The screen zooms in. In the distance, there is a pale purple nebula with numerous bright white spots between them and it. "Sir?" Mr. Wynne asks. "I thought I saw—" "Sir, I spotted it," Mr. Wynne says, and quickly the image zooms in again. Then it's much clearer. Something dark is blocking out a star, then moving on before semi-blocking the view of another. It's clearly artificial. It matches up perfectly with the thermal signature. "So we have guests," Captain Ragney says before tapping a few controls on his command couch. "Consultant, on the bridge. We have something strange here." "Prepare for teleportation," Harold replies. "Confirmed, you won't be shot if you just appear." "Thank you, sir," Harold says as he's suddenly there. There is a sensation of something other. A not sound that Captain Ragney clearly did and yet did not hear. Potential hostile? Possible. They're skulking about. Not hostile, but suspicious as it gets. Harold notes as he slinks through the bridge to stand behind Mr. Wynne. "Do you mind me being here?" "I do, but I'll put up with it. This could be bad." "Thank you for your patience," Harold says as he watches the distortion. "Well, it certainly is a starship. It just changed its flight pattern." "Yes, that much is obvious," Mr. Wynne notes. "At this range, our sensors won't be able to determine much more about it without possibly alerting our skulking friends." "And do you have any actually useful insights?" "In a moment, if it passes in front of that slight extension of the nebula," Harold begins before chuckling. "Okay, that sucker is considerably smaller than the inevitable. Its general shape suggests it's a frigate, for lack of a better term. This thing is fast but not well armored. However, it can have all sorts of axiom surprises." "If it attacks, what are our options?" Captain Ragney asks. "Flak and chaff are our best solutions if it's hostile. Standard shielding in the galaxy is geared towards lasers and plasma, and a frigate like this won't have the sheer bulk to resist something like rail shot or even just some well-aimed missiles or torpedoes. We hit a ship like this kinetically, and the whole vessel feels it and loses a great deal of its combat capacity." Makes one wonder why kinetics aren't more widely used. Cost primarily. Lasers are basically free after installation, and plasma rounds are compressed, agitated, and magnetically bottled gases which any nearby world or even just a bit of light asteroid mining can get you by the kiloton. Both burn through ships well enough while leaving a good chunk intact for capture or salvage, despite taking them down, but a kinetic attack rips things apart, and you have to carry the ammo which, to be truly useful, needs further refinement and manufacture. Sensible. Furthermore, the lack of proper atmosphere means that the lasers and plasma attacks have a truly respectable range. Captain Rangi notes. "Correct, Captain," Harold notes. "So do we kick this potential beehive?" he asks, and Captain Rangi considers for a few moments. "No, but I want to know where that thing is at all times," Rangi states. "Fair enough. I'll be putting my team on alert in case things start getting exciting." "See to it, Consultant," Captain Rangi states, and Harold salutes before teleporting out. "We need a way to block that," Mr. Wynne notes. "We do. However, any modification to the ship has to be done by officially sanctioned engineers," Captain Rangi says with a sigh as he starts to feel the red tape outright strangling him. "And they can only use technologies and techniques properly studied by the appropriate approved scientists," his communications officer, Mr. Shen, adds. "And they cannot approve of a subject unless they have a legally recognized higher education accreditation in it. And no non-Earth university or college is legally recognized as appropriate accreditation, meaning axiom-based studies are out," Mr. Wynne finishes. I know, it's a clusterfuck. However, I've been speaking with Observer Wu. We're finding loopholes." "Maybe, sir, but every day I'm out here, the more I understand why the first ship went rogue. It's not hard to figure out. You teach people to beat anything and then tie them down, and of course, they're going to break out," Captain Ragney states. "But our duties are our duties. No matter how understandable the undaunted are, they're still a potential problem. We take their measure and go home." "Yes, sir. Now keep me updated on that ship. I want to report every 5 minutes unless its status changes." "Yes, sir," Mr. Wynne notes. "So potential hostiles? None confirmed?" Varshania asks. "No, but a ship skulking at the edge of sensor range without its IFF, transponder, or communications on is suspicious as all hell." Harold states. If we were in a patrol ship, we'd already be hailing those people. Suri Char, a very distant relation to Bryn Char, says, not all of us worked as officers before Oh Dear Sister in battle. Larl Hren says, not much to recommend to it. A lot of red tape, as humans call it. Also, there's just so many plot and working in it. It's almost a parody. Is it true that if you scare them really badly, they curl up into armored balls? Larl Hren asks. I can answer that one. And the answer's no. At least not adults. They're too big for it, Harold says, holding his arms out as if containing a sizable bust. The little girls, though, they can do it. Oh, would that mean a well-mated mother could also do so? Yes, but they still make breathing hard, Harold answers. And how do you know this? I have the memories of a high-rank intelligence officer. The sheer amount of nonsense that goes across Herbert's desk is enough to casually gain an understanding about just about anything. Not a deep understanding, I will admit, but an understanding nonetheless. Consultant. Harold's communicator activates and he taps it. Present Captain. We're being scanned on a low profile. It's paying attention to the more inhabited parts of the ship. We suspect that they're about to do something. Give me insights. Inhabited areas, low-profile ship, in unpatrolled space, and we may have slavers or pirates. I'm going to spread my team and myself into those areas being scanned, so we might intercept any incoming or outgoing teleports. Tell your men to be on guard and ready to rumble at any moment. Boarding teleportation, well, that's an issue. And takes very specific materials or shielding to block, Harold says. I'm going to get moving now. Jameson out. He puts the communicator on standby and looks to his squad. Well, you all overheard that. Spread out among the ship and be ready for interception. Banshee Eve, do you two know how to... They teleport behind him, and he turns with a smirk. Good. You have your orders. Carry them out, soldiers. He begins moving. If the other ship was probing them, then they were about to do something. The question is, what and when? The answer was, teleport kidnaps someone, and the when was in 5 minutes. Harold had intercepted the sensation and had introduced himself to the kidnappers. With an axiom-infused drop kick that cratered the chest plate of mechanized armor and sent the battlesuit slamming into the far wall after knocking over 2 of its fellows like bowling pins and sending them careening into waiting forces. You've done it now, he calls out. His communicator goes off as he grabs a blasting stun cannon with the electricity parting against his palm before pulling it, and the mechanized armor holding it over his head and slamming it to the ground. Too much! They're too much! Send him back! Send him back! Someone screams out before he feels things invert, and the ceiling lights up. Slaps his left hand over his pants pocket and a single device is gone. He's then teleported back into the forward mess hall and still has the cannon going off against his palm as he arrives. Huh. Firing mechanism stuck. Hang on, he says as he carefully maneuvers the device and then deactivates it. Okay. Was anyone else taken? Not that we're aware, sir. What the hell happened? Kidnappers. I sent them bouncing off the nearest walls and they decided that it wasn't worth it. Mr. Jameson, would you mind explaining just why in the unholy hell you were on the other ship and how you got back so quickly? They tried to kidnap a crew member. I intercepted and was sent over instead and immediately began solving my problems with violence. They abruptly changed their minds about this and sent me back. Where's the ship? On fast retreat, no longer trying to hide its presence and leaving the area at maximum burn. Huh. Neat and disappointing. I expected more of a fight out of them. Stop tempting fate. But how am I to punch fate if I tempt it not? Harold asks. Don't get poetic about this. Sweep the ship. We're taking a poll on who's here and who's not. Right. And the piece of equipment I captured? You were gone for less than 5 seconds. I still got an electric cannon out of it. Bring it to the labs and then proceed with the sweep. Captain Rangi orders. Yes, sir. Displacing now. The only thing on this ship that wasn't before the other ship made its move is the cannon I swiped. Why did you swipe it? Observer Wu asks. Accident, sir. I was holding on to it to swing the mechanized armor holding the other end, like a club, Harold says. Of course you did, Captain Rangi notes with a snort. Captain, sir, What's the status of the hostile ship? Did it send any messages back or just retreat at top speed? It just retreated at top speed. Apparently you left quite an impression. No, I'm pretty sure I didn't dent the deck plating. I was just getting started when they quit, Harold states. Not what I mean by why not. I know, I'm trying to be humorous, sir. I understand, young man. They don't get much younger than me, Harold notes. Not the time, Captain Rangi says, and Harold shrugs. To be honest, sir, unless we're willing to chase them down, then we should just move on. I put a small tracker in the ship, and it will activate in 72 hours and start sending its signal to the Undaunted. But before that, we've got time to chase them down if you care to. You were ready for this? Captain Rangi demands. Technically, yes, truthfully. I was going to start teaching intelligence how to identify and safely disable such devices. I need some time to craft some more learning tools. You make your learning tools completely functional? Not all of them. When I get to alien bombs, they're going to have 1 or 2 components replaced with silly string and confetti. Continue. But in the end, the point of that tracking beacon was, well, I was to ask permission anyways. Sir, may I activate a tracking beacon on the ship so that it can be monitored by both the bridge and the Undaunted to determine where we are? Having them know our exact coordinates means if we encounter hostiles, they'll have our last known position. The purpose of this beacon is to train intelligence in the locating and disabling, spoofing, and sabotage of such devices. Granted, incidentally, what are the odds of the one you planted being found? I can't give you a solid number on the odds, sir. If they have someone thorough and clever, it's likely to be found. I gave it a random teleport, and until it activates, it's just a timer on an otherwise inert device. After it goes off, it'll be easier to find. Hopefully by then, they'll be somewhere sensitive, and our friends with big guns can start sniffing around there. It could be in someone's booze stash, behind some pipes, on someone's better desk. Who knows? I'm not familiar with that ship and crew. 5 seconds, and you reversed an assault, stole a piece of equipment, and planted a tracker before being sent back. I was playing nice. Our Apuk girls would have had a body count. We're going to the nest of the Apuk. That's not reassuring, Observer Wu states. Sir, do you want me to lie about things? No. Then just remember that your manners go a very long way to getting people to play nice. You'll be fine unless you step in the middle of someone else's nonsense, but we have backup nearby. Are you trying to make me paranoid? Not intentionally. Then stop unintentionally making me paranoid, Observer Wu orders. I'll do my best, sir. You can start any time now. I thought I just did, Harold protests. Captain Ragni starts chuckling, and Observer Wu's poker face breaks. All 3 men are having a quiet laugh in short order. All right, you did good. Now get out. I need to go through a 6-page report for this, Observer Wu notes. Sir. Yes, sir, Harold says with a salute. Captain, sir. The helm calls over Captain Ragni's communicator. Yes, pilot? We will begin transferring into the Axiom laneway in 5 minutes. Will you be with us on the bridge, sir? I will be there in 2, Captain Ragni says, standing up. Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 104. Elsewhere with Others. All hands, this is Observer Wu. I have an important announcement to make in regards to our mission of observation and understanding of the galaxy as a whole. That observation is that it is frankly impossible to actually understand the galaxy without expanding our suite of allowed tools and techniques. I have officially recorded and notarized the date and entire decision-making process. The attempted kidnapping from the pirate vessel was the final straw. As such, I am allowing a flash furthering of education on a case-by-case basis. It is required for at least 1 scientist of master's level, 1 engineer with a master's level, and 1 medical doctor at a master's level to partake in flash learning so that we can appropriately understand, filter, and utilize the necessary safety and observational techniques of the galaxy. We will not be succeeding in our mission if we die in pursuit of it, foolishly cutting ourselves off from techniques or technologies that could easily save our lives. This decision was and is fully legal and within my power to make as dictated by our mission objectives and our charter. I will now be requesting volunteers from medical, engineering, and research with the appropriate training to come forward. If no proper candidate does, then I will select one, personally. I thank you for your time and patience in regards to this difficult decision and urge you all to continue your loyal service to Earth and all its peoples. Well, that was rehearsed, Harold notes after the announcement ends. What? You think he'd make that announcement without at least a dry run or two? Agent Szigeti asks, and Harold shrugs. Probably not, but there are some people who can just go off and it sounds like something out of a textbook or a movie. From what I understand, the big moth has that gift, and it's been biting him. Agent Szigeti snorts at that. The idea of a man being uncomfortable with popularity but unable to stop being popular was amusing. All right, so back to things. We can now identify all 6 of these different common bugs and know the general signs of an axiom-based bug. Now what next? Next is prying open the can and taking out the parts depending on what you want to do. Shutting them down is one thing. Feeding it false data is another, and hooking up your own bug into it to listen to what they're listening to. Of course, if you just want them gone and time is not on your side. Harold begins before moving and smashing one of the bugs. You can always caveman it. Dude, that was obvious, Agent Szigeti says. A lot of people miss the obvious. If all else fails, Grug Smash is always an option in almost any situation. Diplomatically too? Yes, they quite enjoy it if you go, "You're going to stop right now. We're in a borderline enforced dry spell and it's horrible." Not my fault. It kinda is, Mr. Undaunted. Dude, I was literally cloned into this. I didn't even exist as anything more than a clump of cells when your bosses started making these mandates. Eh? Fair, Agent Szigeti notes. Hey, is most alien technology so fragile? Another officer asks. There is a massive mental gap in about 90% of the galaxy. Most of their defenses are against axiom technologies and techniques. Therefore, if you use neither, there are weaknesses to exploit. Kinetic attacks, otherwise known as just wailing on them, generally aren't considered. So even though any one of these bugs could eat laser blasts and even a shot or two of plasma, we can crush them all by hand. Are there exceptions? Always, there are some very physical peoples. We're going to meet one. The martial culture of the Apuk means that if you get in a brawl, you're going to lose teeth. Others, like the Kenador, Kruga, Brute Arcana, Zedin, and Yaya. There are many races that are very physical, but they are vastly outnumbered by other races. Is there a reason you're explaining this? The more physical a race is, the less likely they are to disregard reinforcing things. It also plays into psychology. While the alien species can be generally counted on to be reasoned with, or at least someone reasonable, each one also has its own idiosyncrasies that alter their behavior. You need to also recognize the idiosyncrasies that we ourselves have compared to the galactic norm. And those are? We are absurdly enduring and yet also incredibly short-sighted. This means we often confuse the living hell out of much of the galaxy. Couple that with the fact we're easily mistaken for the nearly ubiquitous Tret species, and we have appetites far in excess of most others. We're far off topic, so here's the last little bit of advice. If you wait for someone to take a bathroom break, you're going to wait for way too long. I see. SO, back to the bugs. Right, well, let's crack them all open so you can see the insides, Harold says, and everyone grabs a different device. Find the seam. Generally, devices like this are locked together, glued or magnetically sealed. We have a variety of these. Feel free to crack things open, and I'll go over the guts so we can get to figuring things out. It takes about a minute until everyone have their varied devices open in front of him. Most are broken, but not all of them. Good, now gentlemen, this is ProTN.Harold says, pointing to a tiny piece of metal in each device. It's an artificial metallic crystalline substance. In alloy, the largest component is girdle. This little pink piece of brittle metal melts like metal and breaks like quartz. It cannot be produced, nor can 90% of any of its ingredients. However, when melted down into a large piece and then broken off into smaller pieces, each one of those pieces acts like they're still attached to each other. And considering it can transfer electricity only a little less efficiently than copper and channels axiom as well as Kutha, This is the beating heart and soul of galactic communications. Didn't you mention something about a Pro-TN factory being made? Yes, a method was found to substitute some ingredients for more common and easily procured materials without a loss to its remarkable abilities. The downside is that the forging process of protein requires a long compression period, one that is significantly longer with the substituted ingredients. So in other words, it's possible to make it, but without as much girdle as is normally used, it takes much longer. So the question is whether you spend time or money. So, how does... I don't understand the molecular makeup of protein, not fully. It's a weird thing, acting like both a crystal and an alloy at the same time. But we're off target again. Look for the pink crystal in any device capable of long-range communication. That is Pro-TN, and messing with it is how we subvert these. Think of them like an antenna that you can't hack or block the signal of the damn thing, but the antenna itself is plenty vulnerable. Now, as for what we do with it, we can pull it out and plant it into a subverted device, mess up the data. Garbage in, garbage out. Beautiful. Can it be tracked? There is a way. It requires a specialized device that I know you don't have approved yet, but is likely on the way following Observer Wu playing jump rope with his red tape. And kudos on him, because it means I can start waving things like this in front of your guys so you can get your own. Harold says, pulling out a heavily modified communicator. Now, in some states, these kinds of scanners cannot, legally speaking, be built into other devices. They're for dedicated scanning equipment only and must not be designed to easily fit into your pocket and the controls concealed beneath a video game app. What's it do? It is actually able to use the temporal signature of the Pro-TN to more or less ping the other side of the communication device and take an axiom snapshot of whatever gear it's part of and hooked into. This by itself is normally enough to find out who's on the other end. Even better, this kind of data has a mild scrambling effect on most gear. You need specialized sensors to detect it, meaning it's subtle too. But that's not all it can do. Look to this, and this bug. There's some kind of strange bronze-looking mounting it's on. That's Kutha, and that's correct. That mounting is designed to basically tell you where it is at all times. It works with a galactic range and was one of the most important pieces of equipment we managed to send to Emmanuel when he was still stuck on Lacran. That let us pinpoint exactly what planet he was on, from Centris. So if you find that kind of nonsense in a bug, you can be completely certain that they know exactly where it is in the galaxy. And how do we disable it? Remove the Pro-TN. It's that simple. Wait, can we then use the Pro-TN to ping the other side to find out who's been tracing that thing so much? Yes, sometimes these things are simply tracers and are generally smaller, but the principle is the same. Harold says, reaching into his pocket and placing a handful of small devices on the table. Here are all the most popular models of tracer, and hang on. He pulls out one last tracer and lays it on the table. Pull them apart, boys. Have fun. There's an entertaining period of 10 minutes as people try and find the seams on the devices, and one man even resorts to using his teeth. Why are the tracers so much stronger? They're assumed to be tossed around or attached to the outside of a vehicle. They need to be hard-wearing. Did you drop one of these on that pirate ship? I had a much more custom model. One of these, Harold says as he pulls out his third and final piece for today's lesson. Unlike the varieties of shapes found in the first two, these ones are simply flat ovals. Their construction method makes sense, and small screws can be found. They have redundant systems, and if broken into, will scramble the Kutha, meaning that only pinging through the Pro-TN can find the other end, which is being monitored in the correct manner. So you'll know if someone pings you. Correct. Which means that someone just found the device, and we need to go over recent data, Harold says. Interesting, for all that there's all sorts of strange tools and shortcuts, the game of paranoia and deceit is still the same tangled mess. Everything is suspect, and nothing is as it seems. And that which is has been a dangerous distraction from that which is not, Harold says. A quote? It's one of the things that took the longest for me, for Herbert to understand fully. That which is has been a dangerous distraction from that which is not. The saying goes both ways. It's a warning to not focus too much on any one thing. If you look only at lies, then someone straightforward can and likely will break you. Spend too much time looking only at direct threats, and you invite a knife in the back. A game of paranoia where even your own paranoia is a problem, Agent Shigetti notes. It's a hell of a balancing act, I'll tell you that, Harold says. And it's also one we're going to be dealing with on Serbo. For all that they're forthright and such, there's still a lot of underhanded bullshit that can crop up. The planet is prospering massively and has old entrenched noble lines as well as methods of social mobility. The ambitious, or the bored, play with that, and we can find ourselves tangled in nonsense. But just as easily, we can find ourselves just dealing with very straightforward people, and trying to find the double meaning in their words will just screw you over. Is there an easy way to tell them apart? Not really. For some of them, it's up to whether they're in the mood to screw with you or not. Love and longing. Oh dear, excuse me, the sprightly man in glasses notes as he hands off the tiny Apuk girl to her father and takes a step away before sneezing. Pardon? That's all right, Koga-san. I told you, young man, just Koga is fine, Daiju says with an impish grin. Koga is your grandson, you are Koga-san, and if you keep trying to make the difference, it will be Koga-sama. Threatening me with respect? An interesting concept, young man, Daiju says with a slight chuckle. Still, you are very blessed with such lively daughters. No doubt in a few years, you'll learn what a proper heart attack feels like. But until then, even then, they'll be my precious little girls. On their own merit, or because thereof, Daiju holds it for effect. Your wife? And Vernon gets a dopey smile. Yes. You two are a walking comedy routine that makes young women angry at their boyfriends for not paying that kind of attention. They're just jealous that they don't have our happiness. Daiju just raises an eyebrow and chuckles slightly once more. Anyways, young man, if you're done melting into a puddle at the thought of your wife alone, I'm actually here for a reason. After all, you can't really call yourself shinobi if you don't have the proper training and mindset. I'm ready for anything. Are you certain, oh bloody prophet? Daiju asks, and Vernon's gaze focuses, going from goofy and softer than down to razor sharp as he meets Daiju's gaze. They both nod. OOCS, Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 105. Love and Longing, Not Exactly Hidden. 2 months ago? So many choices, so very, very many choices. Daiju notes to himself as he finally arrives on Serbo. Outwardly, he still looks his age. That pup Herbert couldn't tell he was de-aging from the inside out and had swallowed his whole lie. Something for the boy to work on, and is the only person looking their age as the young pups around him are easily older than he is. Not that he's feeling old anymore. Oh no, in fact he's just taking things nice and slow, growing younger bit by bit. Most won't be able to tell, but he's missing a few wrinkles and a couple liver spots had pulled a runner as well. It wouldn't be much longer until they're all gone. But until then, he would have all the fun he could, while also seeing all his duties done. But the fun part about being an old man is that you can just get away with so much. The disguise of the old man had been his favorite as a young man. A few rambling speeches and then wandering off as if confused and senile had seen him act as distraction for so many missions. He almost felt guilty about it. Almost. Ah, thank you, young lady. You are very kind, he says to the Apuk girl that arrives with his water. There was a slight complication with disembarking, and while some would want to break off and get impatient, he was more intrigued. Apparently someone had a pet with some kind of intestinal parasite, and they didn't want the alien infestation to get into Serbo's ecosystem. Apparently guggaworms were a bit of a problem wherever they showed up. And apparently little Periwinkle was a precious, beloved, and adored little thing that their owner was outright weeping over the potential fate of. Honestly, it looked like someone had managed to breed a particularly shaggy badger in the same manner as a pug and dumped a pail of periwinkle paint on it. Yes, there was something cute about it, but cute in the way of, oh, how precious, it thinks it's healthy. All in all, amusing and perhaps useful. If he could get his hands on some guggaworms, They would be the perfect present to plant on his fellow travelers to draw the eyes away from him, or potentially to get back at more annoying traveling partners. Eventually, a vet arrives, and little Periwinkle gets dewormed, and the parasites are extracted, killed, and then incinerated by a lungful of blue flames from the lips of the doctor. There was something often aggressive about that flame. It hadn't even left ashes or smoke of the parasite. The heat it had given off had permeated and dug in deeply. How very odd, but very intriguing. No doubt the classic diversion of setting everything on fire and escaping in the confusion would be far from effective here, which meant he would have to push himself and likely ending up having more than an acceptable amount of entertainment. The burdens of life. Still, they're let into the spaceport, and he starts walking out. All his luggage is fit inside a hidden pouch strapped to his calf, and if someone goes through it without knowing where everything is, he has several bottles of placebos, vitamins, and basic pain relievers labeled as powerful antipsychotics. Those were always fun when people went through his things and found them. Below the pills were his snacks, clothing, underwear, first in order to shame whoever's digging that deep. A layer of dirty magazines, some of the driest and most boring books he could legally buy, and have them embossed with metal to screw with any scanners, another layer of clothing. And then finally under all that was the real stuff. After all, what kind of soldier would be caught dead without at least a knife? What kind of assassin goes around without his favorite poisons? Or a proper rifle? To say nothing of a proper Kaginawa. Yes, he can carry most of this openly, but it's the principle of the thing. He is a ninja, therefore he is sneaky, even when he doesn't have to be, and especially when it's annoying to deal with. Unfortunately, no one bag checks him. He was so hoping to have a fun chance to gauge an APAC woman's capacity for nonsense, especially when he explained the magazines. His current ones were geared towards gay men, so the disappointment on their faces would be something to warm the cockles of his heart. He walks up to a general atlas of Serbo and studies it. One big continent, big oceans with numerous trenches in the ocean labeled as high-fly zones. Apparently Gojira has relatives here, which is a problem because as far as he knows, the closest thing to Mothra around is months away by ship. There is a large area in the center of the map that has nothing in the way of settlements. It spreads out in all directions, and there are the Indicaitons of some communities on the edge, but it's clearly no inhabited. "Excuse me, young lady?" he asked, walking up to an APAC woman in an attendant uniform. Like all aliens, she is a very pretty and young-looking thing, the kind of woman that you normally need to see a proper hentai for. Thankfully, their voices are rather lower than that, so he's not inundated with that nonsense. "Yes. Is there something I can help you with, sir?" she asks. "Yes, thank you. I'm trying to find the name of the town where my grandson moved to. He's a sprightly lad. Is it not on the atlas?" "I'm afraid not. I was hoping you might be able to help me. I'm afraid my old fingers aren't quite as quick on a communicator as they could be. I hope you understand." The expression on her face clearly says she does not understand, but is willing to humor the harmless old man. "Honestly, girl, that's how an old ninja gets a knife in." "Of course. What's the name of the community he's in?" she asked gently. "The Dark Forest. It sounds lovely, doesn't it? Close to nature." "The Dark? Are you certain?" "Yes. He said that a Miss Empress gave him and his friends permission to move in. Very kind of her. Do you know what she's in charge of?" he asks, playing up the old man routine, and he can see this girl's mental processes crash, reboot in safe mode, and then boot up the fuck it OS. That has got to be a record for how fast he's pushed someone into fuck it territory. He should ease back. Moments like his are memorable, and a well-known ninja is a dead ninja. "Sir, what is the name of your grandson?" "Oh, are you looking for some time with him?" "I understand. He's much like I was at his age, absolutely forcing the ladies off him with a stick." "Literally." "Okay, the literal part was when he had to detain a very hostile daughter of a rather important man who had gotten it into her head to elope with a gaijin. Holding her off with a staff as the rest of the team had time to get some restraints ready had been interesting. The girl spat too. "And his name is?" "Daiki." He says, knowing for a fact that it's a damn near useless bit of information. Koga Daiki? She asks in shock, and inwardly he frowns. He's going to have a talk with the boy. If his name is on the lips of others, you've made a serious mistake in the arts of subtlety. Outwardly, he smiles and nods. He's my grandson. I am Daiju, father of Daigo, who is the father of Daiki and Daini. Okay, so that means oh dear. You're actually old and not just looking that way? She asks and he nods. Not sure how else that happens. He lies. He's been pretending to be an old man since he was 20. It just became less and less of an act as he aged. Okay, there are ways to get in contact with the people in the dark forest, but it will take a while. Oh no, just tell me where it is. I can find my way. I spend a lot of time in the forests and mountains back home. It's a lovely walk, Daiju says with a smile. She's giving him one hell of a weird look. Sir, I don't think you understand. Your grandson is a sorcerer. He's very dangerous, she says and opens herself up for a bit of fun. Oh? So he's been showing magic tricks, like taking his thumb off? He says showing the very basic trick where he pretends to take his off. If you have a coin, I know another bit of magic. No, sir, that's not what I mean at all. I mean he's dangerous, a sorcerer. Isn't that what that means? A magic-using man? Oh, I also know this trick with string and… He is. She begins to say a little too loudly, and they're now drawing attention. Something she's clearly nervous about. He is a sorcerer. They are dangerous. You need to be careful around them. Why? Daiju asks, and he can see the woman mentally starting to pull her hair out. All right, time to stop. Maybe I should call him and get directions. I so wanted to surprise him. It's not wise or possible to surprise a sorcerer in the dark forest. It speaks to them and… She looks around as if someone might actually help her with this. She apparently decides someone will as she waves them down. Halikarn, I need some help here. She calls over and an Apuk woman with waist-length wavy brown hair and a business suit walks up. Yes? I'm having trouble with this traveler, ma'am. He doesn't seem to understand that he's heading into danger. I just want to visit my grandson, Daiju protests. And where is he? He lives in this lovely-sounding community called the Dark Forest. Have you heard of it? Excuse me? See what I mean? The attendant demands. Hold on, Shercrow. Sir, did you just tell me that your grandson is in the Dark Forest? I did. And his name is… Wait, a moment, please, she says and pulls out her communicator and starts going through it. Daiju starts pulling very gently on his axiom and enhances his eyesight to watch the reflection in her eyes clearly. She brings up a gossip rag article with his grandson in it, wielding a sword and in samurai armor, and it seems to be inquiring about kidnapping, romance, random duels, and a lot of speculation. Maybe he should be less worried and more proud? That is looking like a beautiful mess from this angle. She holds up the item next to his face, and just to be obliviously annoying, he tilts his head to the side to throw it off. She tilts it to match him. He then straightens things, and then they spend the next few moments with her, trying to match his movements. She gives him an annoyed huff. You are the grandfather of Koga Daiki, are you not? I am. I am hoping to surprise the young man. A little visit from Grandpa, you understand? Well, there's some things you should know about him. He's something called a sorcerer? Why are little magic tricks so important? I'm pretty sure I taught him most of the ones he knows. Daiju says not letting them know just how much of a truth that is and making them both wonder. Sir, a sorcerer is a very dangerous axiom adept eklu, originating in Serbo. She cuts herself off. That's an interesting correction. What is going on here? Many of them are murderous and quite dangerous when provoked. You need to be a battle princess to survive a fight with one. Forget about winning, just survival requires the sheer power of a battle princess. What? I helped to change that boy's nappies. He's no threat to me, and I'll whoop him if he thinks he can be. Daiju says, making a gesture with the can he doesn't need anymore, but loves to have around because honestly, you can do so much with a simple length of wood with a solid curve at the top for either handholds or hooking. Sir, you do not whoop sorcerers. I'll whoop any disrespectful brat of my line. I am his grandfather, and he will not be giving me any kind of attitude, he says, and both women are just horrified. He needs to ease up. This is becoming too much fun. Now, where's this so-called dark forest he's all holed up in? If he's gotten too big for his britches, I'll be sure to humble the brat. And that was too much. No, Halicharn said. No. No, I'm not going to help a clearly disturbed old man kill himself. I'm going to call an ambulance, and you are going to the hospital, she says. Looks like he needs to make an exit. The fun way. Maybe he had been angling for this. It had been too long since he had made any daring getaways that he hadn't provoked and just got into the habit. Now, young lady, there's something you need to understand, Daiju says as he raises his right hand with a finger upraised. And that is, I'm not just an old man, I'm an old ninja, he says, opening his hand, letting go of the hidden smoke pellet. He'd improved the formula so the moment it strikes the ground, there is a massive cloud of smoke that is nearly impossible to see through. Halicharn claps her hands together and lets out a shock wave that instantly clears the smoke. Daiju is already gone. They look around frantically and then spread out to try and find him, missing the fact he's clinging to the ceiling directly above where they had been standing and is already making his way to the nearest vent. The biggest struggle for him is keeping the laughter contained. It's good to be back.